it's important we take care of the people of Flint. Damage has been done.
So help us understand this question. So you have two agencies in the state of Michigan designed to protect the environmental health of the people of Michigan, saying nothing to see here, move along. You've got the Environmental Protection Agency in Washington, D.C. that actually has somebody on their staff that does studies, 2 studies, I believe, that say there's lead in the water. And then the Environmental Protection Agency, regional director, forbids those studies from going public. Why do we now have 3 environmental agencies basically saying, see no evil, hear no evil, do no evil?
Well, that's a huge bureaucratic problem, and it's part of the problem with culture in government. There are a lot of wonderful people in government, and I've been trying to...
You did appoint, though, these 2 environmental bureaucrats in Michigan, though, didn't you?
Well, let me put it in perspective. They were being... The department people weren't... The heads were not being given the right information by the quote-unquote experts, and I use that word with great trial and tribulation because they were considered experts in terms of their background. These are career civil servants. They had strong science, medical backgrounds in terms of their research, but as a practical matter, when you look at it today and you look at their conclusions, I wouldn't call them experts anymore.
Going forward, Governor, it's Tom Brokaw. Going forward, how do you rearrange the state on environmental issues and on health issues so you don't have a repeat of that in other areas, infectious diseases or whatever it happens to be? You need to have a kind of bottom to top up reformation of the early detection procedures and the people who are in charge of that.
Absolutely, Tom. If you look at, I want to bring in third-party experts because, again, this was a violation of the trust of the people of Flint and the people of the state of Michigan. That's a terrible thing. People have been harmed. So this is something that we don't consider just, what one person did. Let's look at the entire cultural background of how people have been operating. Let's get in there and rebuild a culture that understands common sense has to be part of it. Taking care of our citizens needs to be part of it. That's paramount importance when you're talking about the safety of our citizens.
So, Governor, you're shouldering a lot of this, and we've had you on the show a number of times. We think you're a really good man. I'm going to read you from the New York Times this morning. It's pretty searing, and I'd like to ask you to respond. If Flint were rich and mostly white, would Michigan state government have responded more quickly and aggressively to complaints about its lead-polluted water? Is this a case of environmental racism?
Absolutely not. Flint is a place I've been devoted to helping. If you look at all the work we've done in Detroit, several cities, Detroit, Flint, Pontiac, Saginaw, I've made a focused effort since before I started in office to say we need to work hard to help people that have the greatest need. So we've done a lot in terms of programs there to go help the structurally employed get work. In terms of public safety, we've done a lot. Healthy Michigan was a whole Medicaid expansion. And many of those people getting the greatest benefit are people in places like Flint and such because they deserve better medical care. So many of these things are actions we've taken. What is so frustrating and makes you so angry about this situation is you have a handful of quote-unquote experts that were career civil service people that made terrible decisions, in my view. And we have to live with the consequences with that. They work for me, so I accept that responsibility, and we're going to fix this problem.
Governor, it's Steve Ratner. Speaking of Detroit, you have another big problem on your hands, maybe not a health problem, but also of great importance, which is the Detroit school system, which is on the verge of collapse. Way overcrowded classes, teachers who don't want to teach, no money, and a question of whether the state has done enough to help Detroit in general, but specifically in this case, whether the state has done enough to help the Detroit school system.
Yes, Steve, I appreciate the question. I think you're very familiar with the great work we've done in the city of Detroit with the city government. The next one on topic was the Detroit education across the board. So last year I proposed a plan, and I'm still working on getting implemented, to essentially make a $700 million investment to deal with the historic debt of the Detroit public schools, also give them resources to make a transition and do some investments. And the issue there is I need legislative support, and I've asked the legislature to do that, and I want to get that done before we have court intervention in the situation.
I want to ask you just